Hi, a very happy Tuesday to you. I am out recording this from my phone. I'm sitting on top of this big, I don't know what you call it, like a watchtower, so that people don't talk to me and distract me. And I am looking at this lake right in front of me. So as soon as I begin my day always starts with recording a daily insight. And that's what I wanted to do today, also, even while I'm out for a break. Now, in this week, for me, this is a week of a break. So I'm not thinking of what is my agenda for today, what is my checklist for today. I am just allowing myself to do things which are all nonsense. I'm singing songs, I'm out in the nature, sitting out in the trees, sitting next to a water body right now, and I am trying to recharge myself and establish this relationship with Mother Nature. I can see a lot of trees around here, and I'm just sitting here, just sitting. And as I keep sitting, I keep getting these downloads and this information from my own subconscious, maybe. So I'm basically connecting to my own self, and this is a gift that I give to myself after every 3 months. It helps me to clear my mind, it helps me to become easily activate the best version of myself, which is what I want to be as a professional, as a parent, as whatever role that I have and I am taking up. So if you're listening to me on a busy day, this is just a small reminder for you to take a break every 3 months. I am not saying that you need to go to a big, vacation. It could be a simple, I mean, it could be a simple walk near your house and you can just sit near a tree or you can sit near a water body. It's just about giving that time to yourself where you're doing nothing, absolutely nothing, and still doing a lot, you know how do they say it? Sometimes the fastest way to go forwards is to slow down. It's so different, no? So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm just slowing down, not because I want to go somewhere very fast, but I want to live my life. And I want to consciously design my life the way uh, I want it. And for me, a big part of my life is about connecting with the birds, the animals, the trees, the water, the rocks. I mean, everything. So, anyway, so this is what I am doing right now. And I wanted to take up this question, which was asked by uh, Nabinita. And she said if I could talk something about pre birth. Now, what I wanted to talk about that is so, when I started learning about pre birth, I didn't know how to use pre birth. And it is as I kept using it, I learned a lot. So, pre birth comes from RMT, that's rhythmic movement training. And a lot of people who are RMT practitioners use pre birth. The only thing is that I use pre birth very differently. I have modified it and I have modified the um dosage, so as to say. So I change how I use pre birth. Now, if you're working with an RMT provider who just uses RMT, that person may have a very different way of working and using pre birth movements. What I'm sharing with you is my way, which has really helped a lot of kids. Okay, so the first thing that I do is always, if I start with pre birth movements for any child, that time I will not introduce anything new, which means that time the child will not start with any kind of a functional medicine or a music, like a therapeutic listening or a safe and sound protocol, because pre birth movements are going to rewire the system, and we would want the brain to have enough and the body to have enough resources to be able to cope with the new demands that we would be putting on the body. So that's why I never start with two or three things together. Secondly, if you've already been doing therapeutic listening, if you've already been doing the safe and sound protocol, and you've done it already once or twice, and you've seen gains in your child, and you've already done therapeutic listening also separately once, so you've done therapeutic listening separately, you've done pre-birth separately, and you know how your child responds, and it's been like 3 to 6 months or so. Then if you want to combine, it's okay. But if you're just beginning, I wouldn't combine pre-birth with any other activity. But having said that, you can do it with vestibular input, you can do it with proprioceptive input, you can do it with tactile activities, all that is fine. But what I'm talking about is don't do it with things like a safe and sound protocol or a therapeutic listening. Okay. Now comes how often. So you know that there are three types of pre-birth. One is the pre-birth movements for the lower extremity, then there's pre-birth for the hands, and then there's pre-birth for the head. Out of, I would say, more than 7 8,000 or maybe more than that, the kids with whom I have used pre-birth, I have seen that the lower extremity pre-birth is easier to start and it causes less disorganization, and the upper extremity is even more stronger than the lower extremity, and the head is even more stronger than the upper extremity. So if you're starting, you would always start with lower extremity, then the upper extremity, and then the head. Okay, so that's how you would go. Now when I start doing the pre-birth, if you can also check under courses, I have explained primitive reflex integration for emotional regulation. I have explained about the disorganization, and I'm calling them temporary disorganization signs because they're not always going to be, you wouldn't always see, always, they wouldn't always last, if there is disorganization. If there's a disorganization, the best thing is to pause the movements. That's the best thing. So watch that video so that you have more clarity, and then go ahead with starting it, and also talk to one of our therapists. That's important because they've worked with so many kids and they can guide you on how to use the dosage. You don't want to start practicing and experimenting, which we've already done. Let us help you and give you the best, what you call, way to help your child when your child is disorganized. All right. So the first thing that I always do when I start is start with just one pre-birth movement. All right. And so we do just one pre-birth movement in a week, or maybe just one pre-birth movement once in 10 days. And that too we just do for one repetition. Now, ideally, we do not do pre-birth movements at night. They're supposed to be done in the daytime. So something like morning or afternoon till 7 is okay. In fact, if you're starting off, I wouldn't even do it in the evening. So pre-birth is best to be done in the morning time. All right. And then you can do pre-birth while your child is sleeping. Okay. In the morning, not at night. You can do it when your child is sleeping and passively do it. You can play some songs in the background, or you can sing a song if you're doing the pre-birth with your child. So all that is fine. Now comes how to increase it. So now, as I said, I start with only one pre-birth once in a week or once in 10 days, and I do it for only one repetition. Now, if I observe that for 1 month at least, then I check, if the child is comfortable, then from one pre-birth, I try to go to 2 pre-birth movements in a week, and I still keep it at one repetition. Okay, and then I check how is the child doing. Now, once I feel the child is comfortable, I increase the pre-birth movements very, very gradually, adding up one movement in a week, and I take it to a max of 5 pre-birth movements, 5 days a week for one repetition. Got that? And here I'm talking about all lower extremity pre-birth movements. And now I see that the child is comfortable with 5 week for one repetition. Movements very, very gradually, adding up one movement in a week. And then I check how is the child doing. Now, once I feel the child is comfortable, I increase the pre-birth movements very, very gradually, adding up one movement in a week, and I take it to a max of 5 pre-birth movements, 5 days a week for one repetition. Got that? And here I'm talking about all lower extremity pre-birth movements. And now I see that the child is comfortable with 5 pre-birth movements, 5 days in a week, and one repetition. Then I start adding up the upper extremity movements. Now, in some kids, I combine the lower extremity and upper extremity. In some kids, I only do the upper extremity. And when I do upper extremity, again, I do it only movements. Now, comfortable with 5 pre-birth movements, 5 days in a week, and one repetition. Then I start adding up the upper extremity movements. Now, in some kids, I combine the lower extremity and upper extremity. In some kids, I only do the upper extremity. And when I do upper extremity, again, I do it only once a week. All right. So I may do 4 days in a week of lower extremity pre-birth movement, but 1 day in a week I do the upper extremity movement. That's how I would increase it. Now, if the child is comfortable, I gradually add up the upper extremity movements like how you add up the lower extremity. So one movement every week, and then gradually you make it 2 days in a week, then you make it 3 days in a week, then you make it 4 days in a week, and then finally, if your child is comfortable with the upper extremity movements 5 days in a week for one repetition, I know that now the child is comfortable so that we can add up the head pre-birth movements. Okay. Now, all of this, I know that now the child is comfortable so your child is comfortable one movement every week, and then gradually you make it 2 days in a week, then you make it 3 days in a week, then you make it 4 days in a week, and then finally, if your child is comfortable with the upper extremity movements 5 days in a week for one repetition, I know that now the child is comfortable so that we can add up the head pre-birth movements. Okay. Now, all of this process may take you 6 months, it may take you 8 months, the adding up of pre-birth movements. So be patient, because some parents are like, if it's going to take so long and if the child is going to keep getting disorganized, when will my child improve? It's too long. See, you cannot, you cannot make things go fast. I mean, right now I'm out of my house, and in my house, I have a rose plant, and there were 3 buds in it, and they were opening up. They hadn't opened up completely, they were opening up. And now I know by the time I'm going to go back, the buds would have opened up, and I would not get to see them opening up. Now I could not take a tweezer or something and open it up by force. I could not do it. So improvements and the healing or the changes or the rewiring, whatever name you want to give it, happens slowly. Okay, so do not rush through the process. Trust the process. As you continue doing it, kids improve. All right. Now, so you've done, say, this upper extremity and the lower extremity, and it may take you, like, I would say, a year, maybe even 2 years to kind of reach to that level. Now, I'm not saying that you would not see gains till this is happening. As you continue working, you would start seeing subtle changes and improvements that will keep coming up. All right, as I'm talking to you, here is a kingfisher who just landed in front of me and it's sitting looking at me. My God, this is the relationship that I want to have with nature. So beautiful. Sorry, I digressed. So, rather, I did not digress. I want to appreciate and stay in awe. And coming back to our pre-birth again. So when I'm doing pre-birth and I've done the upper extremity, I've done the lower extremity, and the child is comfortable, there is no disorganization, you're doing it 5 days in a week for one repetition, then I make it happen for the head. Now, when you do it for the head, same way you will progress. Okay, now once you've got and reached a level where a child is able to take the upper extremity, lower extremity, head, any movement you give 5 days a week, and the child is comfortable, then I mix and match. You can add up 1 day of lower extremity, 1 day of upper extremity, 1 day of head, and you can just keep mixing and matching. And then the goal would be to increase the repetitions to 3 repetitions. All right, and then As you're doing all of it and it's been like say 6 months, you're trying pre-birth and all, then you can add up therapeutic listening, or you can add up the safe and sound protocol. You can do anything. This is a general protocol that I'm suggesting, Nabinita. I keep changing this also depending on how much disorganization the child shows, how much difficulty the child shows while I'm um, adding up pre-birth movements. Okay. Now, what are the typical gains that you would see with pre-birth? Because pre-birth works on integrating the fear, not integrating. It helps to transform more fear paralysis reflex to moro reflex. You would see a little bit of hyperactivity. You would see a child who's becoming more uh, what you call defiant, child who's saying no all the time. So it's a good sign that the child starts becoming defined, because children have to learn to say no, and that is how the self esteem and the ego starts developing. But along with it, you also see a child who's exploring, who's learning from the environment, who's following instructions easily. A lot of gains I have seen when we do pre birth work. Lot of gains. Okay. Um, then comes that these pre birth movements are actually movements that a child does in the mother's womb. So many a times, if you have access to a pool, swimming pool, or if you are staying near a water body like a lake or a river, then if you put a collar around the child's neck, like an inflatable collar, and you can put maybe something like a float around the child's belly button. So there is a tire around the neck, and there's a float around the belly button, and you do the pre-birth movements in the water. When you do these pre-birth movements in the water, it simulates the womb-like environment, and that helps even more. So this is how we increase the frequency, and this is how we continue. Now, some questions parents ask is how long to continue these pre-birth movements. As long as you keep getting gains, as long as you keep seeing changes and improvements, you would continue. And for me, I have done it for up to 3 or 4 years with kids. Even when they've improved significantly, I still continue working on that. Then comes what happens if there's a break while doing it. Sometimes parents take unknowingly, not unknowingly, situation is not in control sometimes, and there's a long break of like 2 weeks or 3 weeks, or maybe sometimes it's 3 months or 4 months. Then, if it's a big long break, I would start again. I can go a little faster, but I'll start again, because every time you do it. And then again, another question that parents ask me. So, yeah, I would start again, basically. It may sound frustrating, but I start again. But a frequent question is, how long will this disorganization keep coming up? A point comes in many kids where we do the pre-birth and they don't get disorganized. Rather, they start feeling more calmer, they start feeling more settled. And I use pre-birth later, like if a child has done it for 2 or 3 years, to make them feel grounded. Not in the beginning, okay, later. And it helps the child to feel more grounded and more calmer. So that's how I use pre-birth later also. Sometimes I do pre-birth for myself because I've done it a lot for myself, okay? And I'm out of that disorganization phase, and it helps me to clear my mind. It helps me to connect and have a relationship with my own body. So this is how we do, and this is how I work on pre-birth movements. They were developed by this person called Claire Hawking, and they were, I think, edited or modified by Dr. Harold Bloomberg, and everyone is using it in their different ways. The biggest change that I find with most kids is kids who appear to be lost into their own world start becoming more aware of the environment, and they start learning from environment, which is big for me. So, Nabinita, I hope I've answered your question, and I hope it has helped everyone else who's listening to me. Thank you for listening to me, and thank you for keeping me disciplined, even while I'm on a vacation. It is really important for me to do something every day for somebody, and it helps me to feel better. So, thank you for doing that. Thank you for listening to this. I would love to ask all of you who are already doing pre-birth, maybe for the last 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, share your, learnings. because that will help a lot. It'll become like a social learning session. So let me know what has helped you, how it has helped you. If you've done it and stopped, why did you stop? I wouldn't stop pre-birth movements. They're very helpful. Again, some parents ask me, is it only for kids diagnosed with autism? As I said, I also do it. So it's not just for kids diagnosed with autism or kids with sensory challenges or none of it. It's for any human being who has a human body. It helps. Alrighty. So I would wait for your comments on this topic and I would see what you have said. And I hope this helped you to grow and evolve today. Thank you.